I always knew my parents loved my sister more than me. It wasn't something they tried to hide. Growing up, she was the one who got everything first: attention, praise, opportunities. I was the quiet one who stayed out of the way and figured things out on my own. So when I finally bought my own penthouse after years of working nonstop, it felt like the first thing in my life that truly belonged to me. It wasn't just an apartment. It was proof that I could build something without anyone's help. That's why I was surprised when my parents insisted that my sister's wedding reception should be held there. They said the view was perfect and the place was elegant enough for such a big moment. I didn't want to start an argument during her wedding week, so I agreed. I spent days preparing everything, making sure the place looked flawless. Guests filled the living room, music played softly, and everyone kept complimenting the penthouse. For a brief moment, I felt proud of myself. Then my father suddenly stood up in the middle of the celebration and raised his glass. The room went quiet as he smiled proudly at my sister and then turned toward me. Before the wedding tomorrow, he announced, "Our family has one more beautiful gift to celebrate." I felt a strange tension in my chest as every eye turned in my direction. My mother smiled sweetly, like she was waiting for me to say something rehearsed, but I had no idea what they were talking about. That's when my father calmly said the words that made the entire room applaud. He told everyone that I had decided to give my penthouse to my sister and her new husband as their wedding gift. The clapping grew louder while I stood there frozen, because the truth was simple. I had never agreed to that. The applause echoed through the penthouse while I stood there, completely still. People smiled at me, like I had just done the most generous thing in the world. My sister was already hugging guests, thanking them like the apartment was officially hers. I slowly looked at my parents. My father's expression wasn't proud. It was expectant. He believed I would play along. My mother gave me that quiet warning look she used when I was a child, the one that meant don't embarrass the family. For a moment, the room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in on me. I took a slow breath and said calmly, "I never agreed to give away my home." The room went silent so quickly it was almost uncomfortable. A few people laughed awkwardly, thinking I was joking. My sister's smile froze on her face. "Don't do this right now," she whispered under her breath. But my father stepped forward with a tight smile. "You're being dramatic," he said quietly. "You told your mother you'd help your sister start her life." I shook my head. Helping is not the same as giving away my home. The calmness in my voice surprised even me. My mother leaned closer, her voice soft but sharp. "You have more than enough space. You can always buy another place later. Your sister and her husband need stability." I could feel dozens of eyes watching every move I made. My sister's fiancé looked confused, like he had just realized he'd been promised something that didn't belong to him. Layla crossed her arms. "You're really going to make this about you during my wedding week?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. But something inside me had already shifted. Maybe it was years of being expected to sacrifice quietly. Maybe it was the realization that they never even planned to ask me. They had simply announced it like a decision already made. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a small envelope I had placed there earlier. I hadn't planned to use it tonight. In fact, I had almost forgotten about it. My grandmother had given it to me 2 months ago. She had handed it over during one of our quiet lunches, her eyes thoughtful behind her glasses. "Keep this safe," she had told me. "One day your parents might try something like this." At the time, I thought she was exaggerating. My grandmother always saw things in people that others missed. Still, I kept the envelope out of respect for her. Now, standing in the middle of the room while my family waited for me to surrender, I slowly placed that envelope on the table in front of my father. Before anyone celebrates my generosity, I said calmly, "You might want to read this." My father frowned. "What is this supposed to be?" "Something Grandma left for situations exactly like this." The room grew quiet again as he opened it. Inside were several documents, legal ones. His confident expression slowly faded as he read the first page. My mother leaned over his shoulder, and her face turned pale almost instantly. "What is it?" my sister demanded impatiently. My father looked up at me, his voice suddenly tight. "Where did you get these?" I met his eyes steadily. "Grandma gave them to me." The whispers in the room started spreading like a wave. Guests shifted uncomfortably while my father flipped through the pages again, slower this time, like he was hoping the words would change. But they didn't, because the penthouse wasn't the only thing my grandmother had prepared. And in that moment, my parents realized something that made their confidence disappear completely. They had assumed I was the easiest person in the family to control. My father kept staring at the documents like he was trying to find a mistake. The room had gone completely silent now. My mother's hand slowly moved away from the papers, her face pale in a way I had never seen before. My sister looked between all of us, confused and irritated that the attention had shifted away from her celebration. "What does it say?" she demanded. My father didn't answer right away. He just swallowed hard and looked at me, the confidence he had earlier completely gone. I folded my arms and spoke calmly. "Grandma transferred the penthouse ownership to a protected trust 2 months ago." A few guests gasped quietly. My sister frowned. "So what? It's still your place." I shook my head slightly. "Not exactly." I let the words settle before continuing. "The trust agreement is very clear. If anyone in the family tries to pressure me into giving up my property or assets, the trust immediately locks everything under legal protection." My mother's voice trembled. "Why would she do something like that?" I looked at her steadily. "Because she knew you might try this." My father finally dropped the papers onto the table. The sound echoed through the room. "So you're saying you can't give the penthouse even if you wanted to?" he asked quietly. I shrugged slightly. "The trust controls the property now. Legally, no one can transfer it, not even me." My sister stared at me, shocked. "So you're just going to let my wedding be ruined like this?" I shook my head calmly. "Your wedding isn't ruined. You just don't get my home." For the first time in years, no one argued with me. The pressure that had followed me my entire life suddenly disappeared. Guests began looking away awkwardly, realizing the celebration had turned into something very different. I picked up my coat from the chair and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop me. Before leaving, I turned back once more and said quietly, "Grandma didn't create this trust to punish anyone. She created it to make sure I never had to prove my worth again." Then I stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind me, because in the end, my family didn't lose an apartment that night.